Hey guys, it's Izzy here, and today we are going to be looking at all the fantasy books that I would like to purchase. So these are not on my physical TBR, but they are books that I would like to get to at some point. I don't know if I said all of them, because there are 144 books on this list, so I am not going to show you every single one. But if you guys would like a part 2 to this video, be sure to give this one a thumbs up, and I will deliver that part 2 for you guys. Let's get into it. If you guys would like to see a physical list of all of these books, I will be leaving a link to my Goodreads shelf down below that includes all 144 books. So lots of fantasy books that are of interest to me, so if we have similar reading interest, you may want to pick these up. I'm not, as I said, I'm not going to read every single one on here, like read it off. I'm not like, I would like to read every single one. So let's start with the first one. The first one is The Absolute Book by Elizabeth Knox. This came out last year and it's published by Viking. This is one that I saw at Barnes & Noble last month, and the cover just really stood out to me, but it wasn't the book that I was going there to buy. So, believes that the past, her sister's violent death, and her own conceived revenge is behind her, and she's trying to get on with her life. So it's fantasy, fiction, mystery, books about books, magical realism. So I like magical realism and fantasy. I'm not always a fan of just pure magical realism. Sometimes I just have a hard time identifying with that and being like, I have too much of a logical mind, I think. I'm just like, why is this happening? It's magic, that's why, but still, I have a hard time. So I like it in a fantasy setting where I know that I'm reading a fantasy book. I know there's probably going to be lore behind why things are the way that they are, world building and all of it. The book that I saw in April is The Snow Witch by Matt Wingett. Might be mispronouncing that. So it is a woman on the run arrives in a British seaside town, a refugee from a horrifying past. That's a common theme we're seeing here, is people thinking the past is behind them, they're running away from it, thinking they can start anew. It's interesting. You don't really think of that when you think fantasy. So this is, again, it's just plain fantasy and fiction, but the small British seaside town is kind of what drew me in. It has a lot to do with witchcraft, rich and magical scenes, light and horrify and intrigue. The next one we have is The Book Eaters by Sunny Dean. This is a new release. It comes out on August 2nd, 2022, and it's by Tor Books, and I trust pretty much every book that they publish that I will probably like it, so that's good. So yes, this is one that I'm really excited about. So out on the Yorkshire Moors lives a secret line of people for whom books are food, who retain all of a book's content after eating it. Now, the part of the Yorkshire Moors, my time there, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is one of the most beautiful places that I've ever been. To some people, they may think they're boring looking, but they gave me so much inspiration. At the time, I had no idea that my family was from there. And that just adds so much more now. It's like, did I have a connection with that place because my family was from there, even if I didn't know that they had lived there for hundreds, if not 1,000 years? It's very interesting to think about. But the Yorkshire Moors, I think, are the perfect place to have a fantasy novel take place. So this is fantasy fiction, LGBT, adult, books about books, queer, horror, lesbian, gothic, speculative fiction. That all sounds good to me. This is one that I added in March, and this is one that I wanted to get my dad for Father's Day, but I could not find a copy of. So hopefully we'd find a copy sometime soon, but it's not going to be for Father's Day at this point. But it's called Creatures of Passage by Morwa Ujidye. That's so wrong, but this came out last year. So with the echoes of Toni Morrison's Beloved, the novel explores a forgotten quadrant of Washington, D.C. and the ghosts that haunt it. So Nephtius Kinwall is a taxi driver of sorts in Washington, D.C., ferrying ill-fated passengers in a haunted car in 1967 Plymouth Belvedere with a ghost in the trunk. Endless rise in alcohol help her manage her grief over the death of her twin brother Osiris, who's murdered and dumped into the Anacostia River. So it starts out in 1977, and again, a Washington, D.C. setting is really what drew me in, as that is a city that means a lot to me, and I haven't been since December, which is kind of sad. Like, I feel like I haven't been in forever when I was literally there only 6 months ago, but still, I'm like, I love it, and I will pretty much read any book that takes place there. And again, this is more of a horror fantasy, so kind of genre bending there. And I think this book was on one of the lists. You know how there's like award-winning list? It doesn't say which one on Goodreads, but I do know that it was on a list. So then this one is from, I saw on the Reading Nips YouTube channel, and then I saw it in Barnes & Noble, but I've not bought it yet, because in Barnes & Noble, it's not in the fantasy section, it's actually just in the plain, where all the other books are section, because fantasy and sci-fi have their own section, and all the rest are just kind of put together. But this is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. Her more well-known book is Piranesi, which doesn't really appeal to me, but this one appeals more to me. So it's the early 1800s. Ooh, we have Yorkshire again, but it's in England. It says a magistral novel weaves magic into the flawlessly detailed version of historical England. He has created a world so thoroughly enchanting that 800 pages leaves the reader longing for more. Will I feel the same? Who knows? So again, this is like a historical fantasy there. I'm seeing mixed reviews by my Goodreads friends. I see a 5-star, or that was a 4.5, a 3.5, and then a 2-star. So it seems to be an average book for everybody. So then we have Mrs. Death by Selena Gooden. This I added in November. So Mrs. Death tells her intoxicating story in the life-affirming fire starter of a novel. I love life stories. Mrs. Death has had enough. She is exhausted from spending eternity doing her job, and now she seeks someone to unburden her conscience. Ooh, so I'm wondering if it's like, if you've read the book Thief, that story is told at the perspective of death. So I'm wondering if this is somebody who is also kind of like a Grim Reaper kind of thing, and maybe they're trying to find someone else to take their job, and they're ready for death. Who knows? It said poetry on there too, so I don't know if maybe that book is told in verse or not. So my camera decided to cut me out, so we're just gonna have end it at that book that I last talked about. Obviously, my cameras have been having battery issues lately. I don't know if it's just the kind that I have that its battery does not last long. Like, I charged it prior to filming and it only lasted however long the previous clip was, so that is kind of frustrating. So I don't know if it's my charge or if it's the battery or what, because this is like the second battery I've had for this camera, and I've only had this camera since 2020, so kind of panicking there. So let me know your thoughts on that, and let me know if you guys would like to read any of these books, and remember to give this video a thumbs up if you would like a part 2 for it, because this one did get cut short. I wanted to go on a little longer, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. I'm really sorry that I am having to end it with iPhone footage, but my camera hates me apparently. But as always, as I said, comment, rate, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!